This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, it's Cindy Harris. Today I'm going to show you my cinnamon swirl bread. Now the first thing we need to do is get some of our liquid ingredients warmed up. Remember, we have this temperature between 110 and 115 that we have to work with. So in a small saucepan, I'm going to put a half a cup of milk, and then I'm going to put a half a cup of sour cream. Now I'm actually using a non-fat sour cream, but you can use whatever you'd like. And then I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of butter. Then we're going to take this over to the stove, put the heat on a low temperature, and every now and then we're just going to come back and give this a stir. We want to heat it gently and slowly, but our end goal here is to get that butter melted. Now, while the butter's melting, let's go over to the mixer and get our dry ingredients together. So we're going to start with 2 cups of bread flour, and then I'm going to put in 1/3 cup of sugar. And for the yeast, I'm going to use 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. That would be 1 packet that we sell in the U.S. And then I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt. Now, I'm not going to use the dough hook right now. I'm just going to use a regular spoon or a spatula, and I want to get these ingredients mixed up. Now I'm going to go back over to the butter, and you can see that it's totally melted, which is great. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off the heat. But now I need to be aware of what its temperature is, because whenever we add liquid to yeast, we have to make sure it's between 110 and 115 degrees. Now, when I go to use my instant read thermometer, you're going to find that this is way hotter than what we need it to be. And if we were to put it in like this, it would actually kill the yeast. So we don't want to do that. But one of the tricks that I do for releasing the heat is I just keep stirring it with my spatula. And then every now and then I take its temperature. And pretty soon it gets down to where I need it to be, between 110 and 115. So now we're going to come over to the mixer and pour that nice warm mixture into our dry ingredients. And to that, we're going to also add 2 eggs and 2 teaspoonfuls of vanilla. And then we're just going to drop the dough hook down in and start getting those ingredients mixed up. Now, as this goes, you're going to see that it's mixing the liquid up with a little bit of the flour, but there's still a lot of the flour on the side. So we want to, at some point early on, stop the mixer and use our spatula and bring that flour in towards the center. Now, we eventually want this dough to get very elasticy. And as you can see right now, it's still too wet. It's not anywhere near being elasticy. So what you want to do is, we've put in 2 cups. You can add up to another 1.5 cups of flour. But what I do is I kind of add it a little bit at a time. It kind of depends what the humidity is at your place that day as to how much flour you actually need to add. A total no more than 3.5 cups, but sometimes you can get away with 3 cups. And pretty soon you're going to start to notice it pulling away from the bowl like this, and that means we're getting on the right track. But there's another way that I test this dough as well. I'll actually stop the mixer, lift up the dough hook, and kind of feel the dough. Now that's feeling not too bad, but still a little bit sticky, because we are going to roll this out. So I'm going to put the dough hook back on, add just a teeny bit more flour, maybe just a couple of tablespoons, no more than that, and let that spin. And then pretty soon it's going to be this nice, perfect, elasticy dough. And you can even see it's pulled away more and more from the side of the bowl. There's practically nothing in the bottom of it, no flour. And when I touch it, look, it's not sticky at all. That's perfect. Now this dough is going to need to rise for an hour, so let's make our proofing box. I use my microwave because I don't have a really great place for proofing dough. And to get it ready, I take a 1 cup measuring cup and I put some water in it for a minute and get that really, really hot. And then while that water is heating up, I'm just going to put a little bit of canola oil into a bowl and use a paper towel, and I want to just oil that whole inside of the bowl because I'm going to be putting the dough in this and I don't want it to stick. And then once I get the dough in the bowl, I'm going to kind of flip the dough around a little bit so that it gets this nice thin layer of oil all over it. Then I'm going to get a clean kitchen towel and I'm going to cover the bowl with it because then it's ready to go into the proofing box. So let's go back to the microwave, and my water should be nice and hot. And now I'm just going to put it into the back corner of the microwave. Then I'm going to take the bowl with the bread dough in it, tuck it in, and close the microwave and let it set in there for 1 hour. And after about an hour, the dough will have doubled in size. And the first thing we need to do is release some of those gases. So we just take and punch the dough down. And then I'm just going to get a little cutting board that I have. I'm going to sprinkle it with some flour, and I'm going to put the dough out in it because we're going to need this for just a couple of minutes. And let me show you how I go about doing that. When I knead dough, basically I take the dough and I put the heel of my hand and I roll it away from myself. Then once that I roll it away, I turn the dough a quarter of a turn and I do it again. So you can see, roll it, push it out, quarter of a turn, push it out, quarter of a turn, push it out. So this is how I kind of do this. And you're just going to basically do it until you really feel that dough becoming nice and soft and elastic, just like this. Now it's time to roll this dough out. Now we're not going to roll it out a whole lot, just to be about 14 by 7, which is, not very wide, because remember, this is going to go into a loaf pan. So basically I just take my rolling pin and I kind of just keep rolling it. Because it's elastic, it's going to kind of, come back on you a little bit, but you just keep going until you get it to be about 14 by 7. Now it's time to put the swirl in our bread. So I've taken 2 tablespoons of butter and melted it. I'm going to brush that on top of the dough, but I'm going to leave about a 1/2 inch border on the edge. That's going to help me seal this off. Now once I've got the butter on, I'm going to make a little mixture with about a 1/2 cup of brown sugar and a tablespoon of cinnamon. Now I'm going to mix that all together real well, and then I'm going to go ahead and put that all on top of the butter. Then you're just going to spread that out all on top of the butter. Again, try to keep about a 1/2 inch border along the sides. I kind of press it down a little bit. And then you're just going to start on one of the short ends of the dough and start rolling it up. Now you're going to want to roll it as tightly as you can, but just roll it on up just like a jelly roll. Now, when you get to the end, you're going to want to make sure that you have the seam side down, and we want to kind of tuck those ends a little bit. So what I do is kind of pinch them a little bit, and then I sort of pull them under, just like that. And then it's time to go ahead and get your loaf pan ready. And I just basically take my loaf pan and put, again, a little drizzle of canola oil and a paper towel and oil that really well on the inside. Then I take my dough, and making sure again that the seam side is down, I go ahead and put it right inside the loaf pan. Now before I put it back into my proofing box, I want to reheat that water for a minute to get it nice and hot. And then when that's done, I go ahead and put the water towards the back. And then I go ahead and take my loaf pan, put the tea towel on top of it, and pop it into the proofing box for about 45 minutes. Now after the second rise, we're going to go ahead and put this in the oven. I'm going to suggest you put it on a foil-lined rimmed baking sheet because sometimes the cinnamon gets very bubbly. And after 40 minutes, it will come out looking like this. How beautiful is this? Lifted just great. You see that cinnamon in the middle of it. It's fantastic. Now once it comes out of the oven, we need to kind of get it off of the baking sheet and out of this pan. And let me show you how I do that. I first start by moving the loaf pan onto a cooling rack. Then I just take a regular dinner knife and I go ahead and run it along the edges of the loaf pan. Now make sure you have your oven mitts on because this pan is really hot. You just give it a little shake. The bread comes tumbling out just like that, and I set it right on the cooling rack. And then there's just one other thing I like to do with this bread. And to start off, I want to get a little piece of parchment underneath the cooling rack. And then I'm going to go ahead and melt a tablespoon of butter. And I'm going to go ahead and brush the whole top with this melted butter. Then in a little dish, I'm going to take just a teaspoon of sugar and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm just going to make like a little cinnamon sugar mix here. And I'm going to sprinkle that right on the top. And the butter will go ahead and make sure that that cinnamon sugar adheres to it and it just kind of absorb on the top. And it doesn't look like much when you have the big loaf like this, but when you do cut the individual slices, it's nice to have that little ridge of cinnamon sugar right on top. Now you need to let this cool for 2 hours, which is going to be really hard, but you'll be so happy you did. When it's ready to cut, look at the crumb on the inside, the swirl, you can really see it, and you got that nice coating of cinnamon sugar on the top. It's really, really good, and it toasts up fantastic. Now, if you want to get the recipe for this cinnamon swirl bread, just go to our website and visit the Daily Bread show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. As always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.